Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Q&A of the short film Seance-ing. I hope everyone enjoyed watching the film. And remember that this film is available for an audience award. So don't forget to vote and rate all of the films that you watch when you're done. I want to start off by thanking the sponsors of this particular film, Melanie Spencer and Films for Good through Bob and Christine Williams, and our major sponsors, BHE Renewables, American General Media, and KSBY. We couldn't make this festival happen without you, so thank you so much. We're excited to be here with Alex Angeles and Vincent Cardinale, writer, director, and producer of Seance-ing. Thank you so much for joining us to show our virtual viewers who you are and have a little chat with us.
We're real. We exist.
Here at our own home.
Yeah, so speaking of, where are you guys chatting with us from today?
Right now, we are actually in Southern California, but we shot the film up in Carmel. We're from Carmel originally, so we split our time between the two places.
Yeah, cool. Working on a different project here because he's always doing something, producing.
Yeah, so we bounce around, but yeah, we shoot all of our films in the Bay Area. We've shot four or five films on the Bay Area in the Central Coast.
Yeah, and it's just such a beautiful place, so why wouldn't you? And also everybody, for the most part, I don't think we've come up against anybody who isn't just thrilled to help us out, and they're just so down to support the filmmaking process. So
yeah,
small towns, man, where it's at.
Yep. So I wanted to start off the conversation just getting an idea of how the film came about and why it felt like an important film for y'all to make. Where did it come from?
So believe it or not, this is similar to a real life experience of mine. It says that at the beginning of the film, based on true events. And yeah, it was just something that had been a pretty formative experience for me, and so it had been rattling around in my head for ages. But then I think the catalyst was meeting Aiden Marchese, who is the lead actress, or one of them, who plays Jenna, and she is the daughter of our cinematographer, who we were already friends with, and I knew he had kids, but then she suddenly was this perfect age, and she has a huge love for Billie Eilish and sort of that fanatic way, and I was like, that's exactly the moment I want to capture. So that was it.
It was definitely based on her real experience under a trampoline in Carmel, obsessing about Hanson.
Yeah.
And so we basically recreated that exact film.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fantastic. As soon as I started, I was like, oh, Hanson. It was great.
There are a faction of people that get it, and then other people that are like, oh, it's just fiction. I'm like, yeah.
I wanted to ask you too about sort of the casting process and what it was like to work with a youth cast, and maybe how the experience was different or similar, or.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No, I mean, yeah.
So it was interesting working with all three of our lead actresses, because it was every one of their first films, and so actually I felt like a huge responsibility to make it a wonderful experience for them. I'm an actress myself. That's where I started, and I just fell in love with the whole process, and I didn't want them to have a bad experience. So I put pressure on myself for that. But yeah, the casting process was, like I said, we found Aiden and then asked her parents if they would mind if she was in a movie. And she was kind of interested and kind of nervous, but she just nailed it. We talked about, what's similar for her to the character, and she just dialed it in. And then after she was attached, I held auditions over self-tapes, local schools in Monterey and Carmel, and middle schools and high schools. And then
Well, it's interesting because you're talking about casting the lead girls right now, who are the actors in the short film, but actually we also had to cast the boys who were in the band.
That's true.
Because we had to create a boy band. So we actually were looking in the middle schools for some of the boys to be a little younger, or at least the youngest boy, because she wanted kind of a mixture. Because in the original band, there was kind of this age difference.
Yeah, that was a dream come true, being able to cast and have the whole photo shoot with those guys, and it was like being with Hanson. And doing all the fun poses from the 90s, like just so cheesy.
Totally.
It was great. But yeah, go ahead.
But there's finding the girls. We eventually found them at Monterey High. Even though we went to a lot of different high schools, but that's my alma mater. So
yeah, and it was one of those magical things where they kind of just plopped into my lap. Like just by coincidence, I got.
They weren't even at the auditions.
Yeah, I was holding callbacks at the theater at the high school, and I got there a little early, and they were having tryouts for the improv club, and I just watched a little bit, and I noticed Grace Kelly Conklin, who plays Heather, and then like went over and asked if she would be willing to like audition right now. And she was like, sure. And then Anna Cassari Dayton, who plays Nikki, she saw me asking Grace and was like, I want to audition too. And I was like, well, I have to reward this gumption. So, because she wasn't at all what I had pictured. But then she just was Nikki. So, yeah.
Wow.
She called me. She was like, I found all the girls. They're great. And Nikki's perfect, even though it's not what I thought, but it's perfect.
Yeah. So kind of thinking about like this theme of like obsession and this sort of age that the girls are all at, and the inspiration from this sort of 90s like teen mania. I was thinking a lot about it feels like coming of age films start sort of a little bit later, and that there's this sort of like 7th grade to 9th grade like mania of girlhood that we don't see very often. And I kind of wondered, like, I don't know, were there sort of like touchstones in your mind when you were making a film of other films or other sorts of art that kind of maybe is in conversation with this? Or
there isn't a ton. I've seen like that movie 8th Grade, although we weren't thinking about that at the time. And just in my head now, I'm thinking there's that movie 8th Grade that did a little bit of that, which was cool. But for the most part, you're right. That age period doesn't tend to get overly. They do start a little later in general.
Yeah, and I think that that might be partially because it's so hard to like catch that butterfly. It's like such a moment and it's so brief, and before they're not kids, but they're not like high schoolers. They're not quite in that
Yeah,
zone.
you get a little too hardened. You get a little too cool suddenly, and then there's that ripe little period before.
Yeah, and that was definitely why I wanted to explore that, because I think it's such a magical time and hard, and so much change happens.
yeah,
and I think it really hit you hard too in that time period.
I mean, I don't think I'm that unusual in that sense, but
no,
but like it's real for everybody who goes through it, and everything is so deeply felt. So yeah, it's ripe for emotional movie making right there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I don't know if you can do it in a way like you all did with this short film, it's sort of transcendent, right? It's not just like, oh, sort of anybody could see themselves in that kind of like obsession and heartbreak and sort of learning.
Right.
I wanted to ask too about this sort of like, there's sort of like this nostalgia factor a little bit with, like Stranger Things and these like period pieces, right? Yeah. How did you go about recreating that time in such a like beautiful and perfect way?
Thank you.
Well, we reached out to some friends of ours that we know who are still obsessed with the 90s. Like one friend of ours in particular.
She has like a podcast or a web series, based on her 90s life. And
so she has a lot of memorabilia, like Furbies and 8 balls.
Sarah's 90s World. That's, check it out.
Sarah Drisky.
Yeah. And I mean, Sarah's 90s World is the handle. But yeah, so we just asked her and she was like, yep, and brought me this enormous suitcase of stuff. And I
All
was
the
like-
90s stuff.
I was like, great. Thank you. So that was basically our art department.
Well, you had a lot of stuff too, some leftover stuff,
Yeah,
stickers
I had
and
like things saved. Oh my gosh, yeah, I had a stack of stickers. It's right here. It's like
so many stickers.
like from that time period, and I'd just been saving them for decades, and they finally lived their purpose.
Oh, wonderful.
All over the CD player with all the little stickers on it.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
why would you? And as she was doing it, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, let's just wait. Then it was.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I saw it, I was like, yes, I had that.
It was fun. And then there was a couple of the more trickier things to find, like that. I really wanted to find that computer,
The Mac.
the 97.
Oh yeah, the color, the like candy
Yeah.
color. Yeah.
And we had a friend who had one, but we just couldn't make that happen, unfortunately. So we had to just kind of fake it and
Yeah.
just shot it from behind.
But I
But
think-
people understood,
I think it works with that dial-up tone, and
And then we had a couple phones. The phone she uses was really cool. I think that were just rentals from prop houses.
it was just a lot of fun to go.
Yeah,
to.
it seemed like a lot of fun.
The girls actually, they were like, I don't know that much about the 90s, but it seems like it was really colorful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, nostalgia is nice to dip into. I don't think when I was producing it, I didn't realize reading it that element of it was so tangible, and then it was pretty satisfying to kind of see that world come to life. And she also did a lot of the art department as well.
Yeah, and it was, I wanted the sounds to be from that time period too, because I think it's like the spinning of when the CD starts
Mhm.
going, and like the cassette tape sounds, and the way the phone sounds when you hang it up. We don't have that anymore.
No.
In fact, people don't even know why you say hang up the phone.
Yeah, there's nothing to put it on.
Like, that's so satisfying to me. I can't, obviously make that sound, but it's like, it's so
So just from like a filmmaking point of view now, what might have been some challenges that you faced, or maybe some victories, things that kind of came together? What was that like?
Well, the lead actress's father being our DP was pretty great. Because he's great. He's shot several of our short films, Thomas Marchese. He's an amazing filmmaker in his own right, and he's amazing enough to work with us. But I think that was helpful, having such a connection with one of the actors.
I don't know that she liked it.
Yeah, I don't know if that was her favorite thing. But that made it a little easier with, anytime you're dealing with underage people or minors, it can be a little tricky with like rehearsal time or like scheduling or just having them, there for a long time. And so it was great having her dad right there. And then the other parents were also fantastic and very understanding. It was tricky getting all the dates to line up. So we actually had to shoot this in one night, which was very tricky. Ideally, we would have done it over 2 nights. So it was kind of a longer evening than we wanted it to be. We went pretty late, and everyone was very understanding. It's got to get it done.
And I think, that had a lot to do with the girls' own enthusiasm for it. They just really wanted to be there the whole time, every minute. And that was just really, really great.
It was a little tricky. Getting the trampoline set up worked out. It's unfortunate that the space that we had in mind was a good friend of ours who I grew up with in Carmel. And his mother was so gracious enough, Cheryl and Kate, they let us use their place. And I don't think they realized what they were signing up for, because they never had something to shoot there. And I was like, okay, I tried to warn her. I'm like, this is a big ask we're asking. And if you say yes to this, we're going to invade your home. We're going to have all these people everywhere. And she's like,
It's
no, I
going
think
to
it'll
feel
be
like
fun.
a lot.
And she was like, oh, I think it'll be fine. And then about a few hours into being there, I could tell she was like, totally like, oh my God, what is happening? So I went to her, like, just so you know, it's gonna be okay. And,
Everything is going well.
and then we went
and-
super late, but she was so nice. She actually cooked for our whole crew, which was not a lot of people, like maybe 15, 20 people. But
Wow.
she cooked a huge,
She made-
amazing spaghetti dinner for all of us, and it was so tasty.
Yeah.
But then at the end of all of that, she said that she would do it again. So that's a good sign.
Right, that was my thing. So it started off being, I'll do it, I love it, and then in the middle she's like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? And by the next day she was like, I might do that again, now that she knew kind of what to expect.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you don't know.
I think like probably every person on a set has felt that way, like in their first experience.
Mhm.
And then you just are drawn back in because it is so good to like collaborate and when you finally see the final product too, and that's something that lures you back.
So my brother Alexander Cardinale did the song that the girls jumped to on the trampoline, that Back to Love. He did that back in like 2003 or 4 or something. He's been a musician for a long time. And my younger brother Emerson, who he and his company Too Lemon, TOO Lemon, they were the crew for it because they were a film crew. And so he's younger, but he's also obsessed with 90s music. And
so it worked out. Like,
so he used my older brother's song for the main song, and then we used my younger brother's song for the radio snippets his voice is the DJ.
Yeah.
So like he has a song he played and like that sounds super 90s. We'll use that at the beginning. It was a family affair.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we used some of your sister's friends' music too from that time period, from the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you grow up during that time period, then of course you're surrounded by people that feel that nostalgia, and I think that's a lot of the support that we had making the film, but also like the people that are watching it. I feel like it's really relatable to people like kids, tweens, I don't know, that are that age because they can relate, and then there's like the people our age who are like, oh my god. So that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, I think you've accomplished it. I hope other people feel the same way.
Any other person?
So just to wrap up, I wanted to ask if you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share with our viewers at home.
We love that people like the movie. It's something that Alex, I don't think, realized. Every time we showed somebody and they had a strong reaction to it, she was always kind of surprised because she thought maybe it was like, oh, just my own little thing. But everyone seems to have a really strong reaction to it because it is a fruitful time period.
Yeah, I tend to be drawn to like little interstitial moments of kind of everyday emotion, if that makes sense. Like normal people, my jam.
It's a show on Hulu that was based on a book called Normal People.
Do you know, like it's like nothing hugely dramatic is happening plot wise, but it's like things that affect you that maybe you wouldn't think about. And then I, halfway through I'm like, oh no, will anyone care? But then I think people do, or at least I've been able to hear a lot of good feedback, and that's really gratifying.
And we're very excited to be part of this festival. I've heard great things about this festival for years, so we're happy to be connected to it finally. It's a little unfortunate we can't be there
I know.
in person, but it's even something like this, we're very pleasantly surprised to be part of it.
Yeah, we're so happy to have the film, and we're so happy to talk with you and get to share a little bit about the process with our viewers at home. And hopefully, maybe another film next year and we can meet in person. Who knows? So I wanted to say thank you to Alex and to Vincent for chatting with us. And again, to our sponsors, Melanie Spencer and Films for Good, and our major sponsors, BHE Renewables, American General Media, and KSBY. I just want to remind our viewers that Seance-ing is eligible for an audience award, so don't forget to rate the film after you watch it. And thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.